Welcome everyone to this webinar on quality greening of communities, insights from case studies of climate communication and education. My name is Marcia McKenzie, and I will be our moderator today for this Greening Education Partnership webinar. I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. I'm calling in from the lands of the Wurundjeri people in Narm or Melbourne, Australia. And we also acknowledge the Indigenous territories that you may be calling in from today. We recognize the importance of Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous land in addressing climate and sustainability challenges and acknowledge Indigenous leadership in this area. So we welcome you to introduce yourselves in the chat and to offer a land acknowledgement for the territory that you are on if you wish. This webinar explores what it means to green communities through quality climate communication and education, or CCE. We will be presenting learnings from a series of case studies across a variety of contexts and countries. This will be both through a wonderful panel of speakers presenting on 3 different case studies from around the world, who I'll be introducing in a few minutes. And we're also excited today to be launching a video that compiles learning from across all the case studies that we've been working with to date. And these case studies are an initiative of and funded by the Monitoring and Evaluating Climate Communication and Education Project, or the MECCE project. And so before we launch the video and hand over to our fantastic panel of speakers, I'm going to say a few words of introduction about the MECCE project and the case studies overall. The MECCE project is a partnership of over 100 organizations and academic institutions, UNESCO, the Global Education Monitoring Report, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change participate in the project on the advisory committee. And overall, together, we work to support international and national level policymakers, practitioners, civil society, and the public to help improve the quality and quantity of climate change communication and education globally. The MECCE project has a number of core components. These include, you can see here from the website, which is, the address is mecce.ca. And you can find information on our set of 14 global indicators that we currently have, which have data from many countries around the world on different components or elements of CCE. We also have country profiles from 80 countries, which were developed in collaboration with the UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report. So you may be able to find a country profile on your country to find out what's happening at the national level on CCE in your country, and hopefully use that as a resource. And then last but not least are the case studies, which is what we're focusing on in this webinar today. And we're excited to share those. You can go to the website and find the descriptions of all the case studies that are completed and underway, the reports, and more information. As we know, CCE is vitally important for enabling climate action, resilience, and hope. Greening communities requires rapid transformation of our societies and cultures. And so providing CCE at all levels to learners of all ages and across all sectors and segments of society is really important to get that social and political will we need to make the changes that are necessary in the time that we have remaining. But what we found in undertaking the country profiles and the global indicator work of the project is that often CCE in various forms and by various names is being delivered through quite patchy policy and practice environments that are quite precarious and less effective than they could be. So we found, as you can see here, summarized that often education policy does not include climate change at the depth or breadth required, and also climate change policy does not address climate communication education a lot of the time. As well, when there is CCE, it's often not holistic. It's tended to be dominated by a focus on facts and the science of climate change, rather than recognizing that this can actually be overwhelming if that's all that's happening, or people shut off, or it's not enough to really motivate and compel people to action. Instead, we also need to be engaging with the social factors and the emotions that people feel, whether that's grief about changes that are already happening, or anxiety about changes that may be to come. And the way that we can really address those things is through engaging people in action and having people see that change is possible, action is possible, they can be part of it, their communities can be a part of it, and so feel hopeful and empowered rather than hopeless and shut off about climate change. Final focus we've got here is that often climate initiatives are spearheaded by individual champions, and then they get disrupted when those people leave the settings. And this is especially true in school environments and other education settings. So really important for it to be mainstream, to be supported by policy and more systemic action. The MECCE project case studies were designed to help us uncover more what is happening when we do see quality CCE around the world. And so we put out some calls for examples of innovative climate communication and education across different sectors, different ages, and so on. And we've had an overwhelming response of well over 200 projects that submitted applications over the last number of years. And so far, we've been able to fund about 20 of those through a process of adjudication through regional hubs and final steering committee adjudication. And the finalists received $10,000 Canadian each to research already existing innovative examples of CCE that are happening around the world. So we've set out to identify what CCE looks like around the world and to better understand what makes it effective in mobilizing climate action. And our findings have found that there are clear opportunities to shift how education is conceived and delivered, to mobilize climate action at all levels, from young people to educators to family to communities to various levels of government. So across the case studies that we've completed and the ones we're going to hear about today, we found that quality CCE tends to focus on relationships with places where people live, including through understanding the local impacts of climate change and getting involved in action to address climate impacts, relationships with the communities we live in, including connecting climate change to the existing values and priorities of community members. And finally, the stories we tell about our places, communities, and climate change are central to making it matter to the things we already value so that we feel the need for action. And these three elements are engaged in diverse ways around the world. So we're excited today to be launching a video that has built out of the photos and videos and data and reports and all the work that's happening in the case studies that have participated in this process so far. And it's a collaborative video called Quality CC, Places, Stories, and Communities. And it's now available on our YouTube for use in teaching or as a resource. And I think we've got the link going in the chat. And we've just got a small clip from it that we're going to show you here.
The stories we tell about our places, communities, and climate change are central to making it matter in relation to the things we already value, so that we feel the need for action. One case study focuses on the climate narratives of girls in the Western Cape townships in South Africa, most of whom participate in the program Black Girls Rising. The girls are co-researchers in creating effective climate communication. Together, they identify and answer their big questions on climate change, such as: climate change impacts rich people differently. How does climate change impact people living in low-income communities? In doing so, they learn the importance of shifting narratives away from those of the global north in how climate change is discussed. They also explore the justice impacts of the digital divide, where communities have different access to digital information on climate change, and the importance of intergenerational engagement and youth voice, where young people learn from elders, but also find it necessary and difficult to challenge adult views on climate change. The girls propose that stories through song, poetry, performance and animation are ideal for understanding and inspiring action on climate change.
What they say if you listen, cause that sound of the river moved across the stones.
The stories we tell about our places, communities.
So that's a little bit about one of the case studies that's featured in the video. And we now have the opportunity to zoom in 3 of the other case studies that are featured in more detail with presenters here today to hear about their initiatives and what we can all learn about quality CCE through their work. The full written reports for 2 of the case studies that you're going to be hearing about next are available on our website, and the 3rd case study is just wrapped up and the report will be uploaded soon. Here we see the speakers that we're going to hear from today from these case studies. And we've got 3 teams that will be presenting. We've got Vaishali Kanoja, who will be presenting. And then we've got Iris Catholic and Carrie Garsgard. And last but not least, Carla Sabatini. Please look for their bios in the chat as each one comes up in the order for more detail on the experience and expertise they bring to this work. Thank you to all these speakers for joining us today and for the important work that you're doing. So first up, we have Vaishali Kanoja, Deputy Manager from Development Alternatives, who will now present a case study on a participatory radio station in India.
Thank you, Marcia. So can I begin?
Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. So today in this webinar, I'll be sharing insights about Radio Bundelkhand and its vital role in empowering remote communities. I'll discuss how this platform has been instrumental in providing essential knowledge and resources, helping these communities tackle environmental challenges and improve their lives. I am excited to share our experiences with you and look forward to hearing your thoughts as well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Okay, is that the one you want?
Marcia? Yeah.
Yes. This one? Do you have this slide?
No. Yeah. Wait. Yeah, this
Okay.
one.
Yeah. Great. Just
So
yeah,
in
just let me
our
know.
evolution of community. Oh, no. The before the methodology one. Go back.
So the
Marsha,
first
please
slide,
go back.
okay, this is your title slide, and then there's objectives. Can you see this
the
one?
objectives one.
Yeah, okay. Can you see it up on the screen now?
It's not come up on. No.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, now it's
it will
able to me. Wait.
it will take a bit of time before it shows on your side because of your connection, so it's fine.
Your connection's a little patchy, I think.
Okay. Okay. So am I properly audible?
What's that? Should maybe you turn off your video?
Yeah, wait. Yeah. So now it's fine.
Yes, I think so. Can you see your slide?
Okay. Yes, I'm able to see it.
Okay, perfect.
So in our evolution of community radio program in Bundelkhand, we aim to understand how effective these programs are in raising climate change awareness among marginalized rural farming communities and delivering practical solutions. We started by reviewing existing literature and projects reports related to climate change communication. We conducted field visits in various parts of Bundelkhand. We organized individual interviews with community radio reporters who are on the front lines of communication and with scientists who provide the technical content for the programs. We also carried out focus group discussion with members of the farming community to gather their perspective. We wanted to know how well they understood the information provided by the radio program and whether they found the suggested climate solution practical and actionable in their daily lives or not. Next slide, please.
The next slide is up.
Radio Bundelkhand 90.4 FM Apna Radio Apni Baatein is an initiative by Development Alternatives launched on 23rd October 2008. It is the first community radio station in Madhya Pradesh and the second in India, located at Taragram Orcha in Bundelkhand. It serves rural communities, empowering them with vital information on sustainable development. Next slide, please.
Yes, it's up there.
Radio Bundelkhand has extensive reach covering 150 villages and reaching over 4 lakhs listeners across Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh and Tikamgarh in Madhya Pradesh. It broadcasts daily for 11 hours. The primary aim of Radio Bundelkhand is to give a voice to the community, particularly in the underserved Bundelkhand region. It addresses crucial issues such as climate change, agriculture, and local governance, ensuring that the information shared is relevant and impactful for the local population. Through this platform, communities are empowered to respond to the climate challenges they face. Next slide, please.
It's up.
Radio Bundelkhand is dedicated to several key focus areas that enhance community engagement and address local challenges. The station aims to fill the information void in rural areas by providing relevant and accessible content. It features programs designed to empower women and youth, encouraging their active participation in community development. For example, local women share their experiences with entrepreneurship, inspiring others to start small businesses and fostering economic empowerment. Radio Bundelkhand plays a critical role in informing communities about their rights and the importance of local governance. The station disseminates information on sustainable agricultural practices and innovation solutions to meet basic needs, helping farmers adapt to climate change and improve their livelihoods. For instance, broadcasts include tips on organic farming techniques and water conservation methods, along with success stories from local farmers who have adopted these practices. Recognizing the importance of cultural identity, Radio Bundelkhand actively promotes the Bundeli dialect and local traditional knowledge through music, storytelling, and discussion about cultural practices. Serving as a platform for dialogue, Radio Bundelkhand brings together communities, scientists, experts, and policymakers to discuss climate change and adaptation strategies. Through these focus areas, Radio Bundelkhand play a vital role in empowering local communities, promoting sustainable practices, and preserving cultural identity. Next slide, please.
Okay. It's up.
Yeah. So how we work at Radio Bundelkhand? So Radio Bundelkhand is dedicated to fostering community engagement and empowerment through a structured approach. First, reporters are selected from local population with a focus on women and youth from deprived classes. This ensures that the voices of marginalized groups are represented. The selectors receive comprehensive training in radio programming and broadcasting, which enhances their skills and equips them with effectively communicate local issues and solutions. In terms of program delivery, Radio Bundelkhand utilizes various methods to maximize accessibility and engagement. Broadcasting is conducted widely to reach a broad audience across the region, ensuring that essential information reaches as many listeners as possible. Additionally, narrowcasting is employed to create targeted programs that address specific needs and concerns of particular communities, ensuring that the content is relevant and impactful. The station also hosts a live phone-in shows which encourages community participation. Like these interactive segments allow listeners to share their views, ask questions, and engage directly with hosts and experts, fostering a sense of ownership and involvement in the program. Through these strategies, Radio Bundelkhand effectively amplifies local voices, promotes dialogue within the community, and ensures that relevant information and resources are accessible to all. Now let's dwell into how the program designing process at Radio Bundelkhand unfolds. It begins with theme selection based on local perception of climate change and agriculture, ensuring that the content resonates with the community. Reporters engage with farming communities and interview stakeholders, including scientists and government agencies, to gather relevant information. Using an edutainment as an approach, programs are crafted into accessible 15 to 20-minute segments that incorporate interviews and the local dialects. Prior to broadcasting, each program undergoes a quality check. Programs are disseminated at convenient time for the community with narrowcasting to reach targeted audience. Listeners' feedback is collected and analyzed, informing future broadcast and ensuring the community needs are addressed properly. Next slide, please.
Okay, it's up.
Building on our commitment to community engagement and climate resilience, Radio Bundelkhand has created several impactful programs focused on climate change adaptation. Let's talk about some of the popular ones. Kaun Banega Shubkal Leader. This is India's inaugural rural reality show focused on climate change. It engages local communities by promoting sustainable practices like organic farming, agroforestry, and rainwater harvesting. The show encourages active participation and showcases the potential of individuals to lead initiatives for a sustainable future. Khet Khalian, an agriculture-centric program that empowers farmers by sharing their personal experiences and insights. It emphasizes the crucial role of women in agriculture, highlight their contribution to farming practices and market pricing decisions. This process fosters a sense of community and support among local farmers. Shubkal, Climate Change Adaptation Program. So this informative program raises awareness about climate change adaptation strategies and resource management. It offers practical information on various sustainable practices, including kitchen gardening, vermicomposting, agroforestry, and efficient irrigation methods aimed at benefiting the community and enhancing resilience to climate impact. Through these programs, Radio Bundelkhand plays a vital role in educating and empowering local communities to adapt to the challenges posed by climate change. Next slide, please.
Okay, it's ready.
So the impact of Radio Bundelkhand on the community is evident through the responses of various stakeholders we recorded during interviews and focus group discussions. So here are some notable insights. So Professor Dr. Satyaveer Singh Solanki, professor from the Institute of Agricultural Science, Bundelkhand University, stated that Radio Bundelkhand connects farmer with experts like me to discuss issues and find solutions. It is a blessing fostering awareness and enhancing knowledge within the community. With its efforts, Bundelkhand is poised to become a hub of organic produce in Uttar Pradesh. So our reporter Manish from Radio Bundelkhand stated that at Radio Bundelkhand, we use the Bundeli language to connect with our listeners because it creates a sense of ownership, localness. Through our program Khet Khalian, we engage with farmers to understand their issues and collaborate with experts to provide solutions. Radio Bundelkhand serve as a mediator in the process. Our farmer, our listener, Dheeraj Vanshkar from the Panjapura village stated that I have been listening to Radio Bundelkhand for 13 years. The knowledge I gain about organic farming help us achieve significant profits with minimal efforts. Whenever I face issues, I reach out to their experts, benefiting not only myself, but also all who listens. These insights highlight the essential role of Radio Bundelkhand plays in connecting experts, reporters, and listeners, ultimately enhancing agricultural practices and promoting sustainable livelihood in the Bundelkhand region. So, yes, as I conclude, I want to emphasize that there is always a room for learning and improvement. At Development Alternatives, we remain open to new ideas and insights because we believe that through learning, we can drive innovation and develop better solutions for our community. So we invite you to connect with us and share your perspective. Together, we can pave the way for more sustainable and resilient future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Vaishali. Wonderful. Next, we're excited to present a case study on a Dene Indigenous land-based education project out of Canada. And the case study is represented today by Iris Catholic from the Kutsalke Dene First Nation and manager of the Thai Nene department, and also Carrie Karsgaard, his assistant professor in the Department of Education at Cape Breton University. And again, please refer to the bios in the chat for more details. So welcome to this team, and pass it over to Carrie.
Hi, I'll just say a quick hello. We recorded our presentation because Iris can't be here today, and she says hello as well from Canada's north. We're looking forward to your questions, and she mentioned also you're welcome to reach out to her following this presentation.
Thanks, Carrie. So we now have a pre-recorded presentation from Iris and Carrie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Iris Catholic. I am the Dene manager for the Litsaka Dene First Nation for an Indigenous protected area in the Northwest Territories.
Hi everyone, I'm joining Iris and my name is Carrie Karsgaard. I'm at Cape Breton University in Mi'kmaq Territory in Nova Scotia, Canada. We're happy to be here today.
So part of our introduction to climate change in Dene, set on the east arm of Tunade, also known as Great Slave Lake, the Indigenous protected area of Dene is fast changing but deeply imbued with ancestral knowledge and care. Characterized by rivers and waterfalls, dramatic rock formations, a deep freshwater lake, and the migration of barren ground caribou. The land has sustained Dene for generations. Despite the community's small contributions to climate change, climate impacts are intensifying, causing changes to ice freeze-up and breakup, animal migration patterns, wildfires, and changes in vegetation. Dene was established by the Litsaka Dene First Nation in 2019. The vision for Dene is Nue Nene Nue Chani Unedidaha, which means our land, our culture, for our future in Dene Sothina. With its future orientation, Dene is dedicated not only to the care for the land through climatic changes, but also to education through land-based stewardship camps. The Litsaka Dene First Nation and Dene, we regularly host various camps and connect youth with elders and harvesters and support young people's learning about the land. Camps are also places to develop knowledge towards professional positions for youth as land guardians within Dene. These camps take ranging forms in accordance with specific locations, including a language and culture camp at Old Snowdrift River, a community hunt, and a culture camp at Adacho 2, which is also called Artillery Lake, if you look it up on the map. A spring camp at Taquizi, which is called the Little Beaver. We got no buffalo. Little Beaver Pond, and a youth canoe trip along the Snowdrift River. While climate change is not explicit focusing on all of the camps, they all inevitably address emergent climate realities as participants spend time on climate changing land. Through an integration of skill building and cultural healing via land-based learning and cultural exchange, these camps support holistic learning about climate change, while centering Dene Sothina learners within our own communities, cultures, knowledge systems, and territories.
And so I had the honor of heading out to Dene and working with 6 young adults from Litsaka Dene First Nation who had previously attended various land-based camps, the ones that Iris was just describing. And we worked together in a workshop to investigate these young people's concerns about climate change, memories of the land camps that they were part of, and the most significant learnings, the things that have stayed with them in the years since they participated. So our original plan was to host the camp out on the land, but the ice was still on the lake, so it prevented travel out to the cabin where we were going to visit together, so we moved inside. And you can see us here working together. We worked through a number of different activities that enabled young people to tell stories about their experiences that would help us with this case study and also inform future land-based camps that Iris will be planning over the coming years with her team. And so during this workshop, participants shared stories, they documented the knowledge that they learned and discussed what they wanted to share with the organizers of future land camps, as well as future potential participants at land camps. So what would they say to other young people who might one day participate? And so while we recorded all of their discussions and they recorded their discussions themselves, an artist also visually depicted their discussions, and you can see clips of the artwork on the next few screens. And so through the workshops, lots of the young people shared a deep, deep concern about the future of their community, which combined fears about climate change with recognition of intergenerational trauma stemming from colonization. And so based on stories from their elders and their own experiences on the land, young people were really familiar with various climate impacts in their region. They talked about everything from lower water levels to increased fires, to invasive species, declining caribou, thinning ice, and changing seasons. All of these changes create really difficult and dangerous conditions for harvesting and traveling on the ice. The young people had sort of had an existential understanding of these changes as they impacted their community's entire way of life. The Dene people are known as caribou people, and these young people wondered who their community would become if the caribou migration left their region. They expressed fear for subsequent generations who may not have the same experiences and practices that were really important to them. At the same time, youth really had a strong sense that action on climate is needed. Based on their experiences of the camps, the young people shared the importance of action through mutual aid or through helping one another. Hands-on learning is really central to the camps, and the young people shared all kinds of their favorite activities, including learning how to make fish nets, collect wood, harvest, and make traditional food. Some of them had learned skills of Western science, such as reading tree rings for wildfires and other impacts. This is the science of dendrochronology. And they also learned about reading routes for shifts in caribou migration. And I know these sound like ranging activities, but the youth discussed them all together and shared how, through participating in these activities, they saw themselves not only as learners, but also as teachers, expressing how it's nice to know you're passing on these teachings too, as one of the students said. And so by learning this holistic range of skills for community survival and cultural maintenance, youth develop confidence and a strong sense of purpose and an understanding that they were part of a whole. And for them, this was climate resilient learning. And so it helped them think about, something as simple as collecting wood or harvesting food, helped them feel like they could contribute to respecting the land, protecting the water, and contributing to their community, which are responsibilities that these young people shared or held by all people. And so they really underscored in their workshop that action is not an individual matter, but is a collective and community endeavor. And you can see the quote from Ashton on the screen about the purpose that this gives to young people.
So in our land camps holds a space for great spiritual and emotional value for all participants. Even though the youth expressed deep concern about the changes they were seeing to the land, the young people shared repeatedly that the benefits of spending time on the land, including feelings of peace and serenity. Land camps help them to feel more connected with the land, and this connection translated into their everyday lives. Following the camps, they described how they would find opportunities to get out on the land when life became overwhelming, whether by harvesting with the family members or simply walking or driving out of town for a little bit of peace. Spending time on the land helped them feel spiritually integrated, giving them a stronger sense of identity. The land was a place for prayer, and prayer was a way of responding to climate realities and other struggles. They understand that the connection with the land to be mutual. If they cared for the land, that the land would care for them in return. Findings from this case study fundamentally shift how CCE is conceived in comparison to mainstream climate education research. Grounded in Indigenous knowledge, land-based stewardship offer holistic learning about climate change that is directly connected with the community and involves paying respect to the land. In this context, their climate learning was integrative across emotional, embodied, community-based, practical, and action-oriented spheres. This learning took place outside of the classroom, on the land and on the water, beside campfires, in canoes, in the bush, And as young people listened to stories, harvested fish and caribou, played hand games, learned their language, and contributed to the well-being of their community, this learning was not dictated by formal curriculum, structured by a clock, assessed by with exams, informed by a teacher with quality standards, or monitored using success metrics. Instead, it's grounded in the Dene way of knowing and being, which affects all aspects of education, goals, locations, roles, modes, organization, and expressions of learning.
Awesome, thank you. And with that, we will conclude.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Iris Catholic.
Sorry about that. Thanks so much, Iris and Carrie, for that, for taking the time to prepare that and sending best wishes to Iris. Here is their contact information. As Carrie said, Iris welcomed people to reach out directly as well. And so now we will move to our third presentation, which we have Carla Sabatini, who will be presenting on behalf of the team a case study on whole school approaches to primary education in Argentina. And Carla is the Executive Director of the UNESCO Chair on Education for Sustainability and Global Citizenship, and is at the Universidad de San Andrés. Sorry for my pronunciation. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. So I'm delighted to share this case study put together by our team. It's a wonderful opportunity to engage in all this fantastic partnership that the Greening Education Partnership invited us to. I'm going to try, if we can move on to the next slide, to provide a quick overview of our case study through the underpinning narratives of place, communities, and stories. So beginning with place, you see the red dot over there is where the school is located, and zooming in a little bit in the next slide, please. You can see that it's actually located by the seashore. It's a very tiny town, Mar Chiquita, in the south of Buenos Aires, some 350 kilometers south of the city of Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. And you can see that there's a wide river that flows into a lagoon, which eventually flows into the sea. And that's where the school is located. It was previously somewhere else in the outskirts of the town, a little bit further from the lagoon. But then the school the population outgrew the building, so they had to move out to a new building. And that's when this story began, with a special need in this community. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So the second element is the lagoon itself. You can see the picture of the lagoon flowing into the sea and the tiny town. And on one of the banks, you can see that there's farmland in the background, and the other bank shows the beginning of a huge natural reserve that has been acknowledged by UNESCO as a biosphere reserve. It was acknowledged like that in the 60s. And long before this school that is our case study was built, it was already like the heart of our school's case study work. You can see that the kids engage in activities like bird watching and counting birds, and they do all sorts of outdoor activities to explore and admire the fantastic biodiversity of the lagoon. We can move on to the next slide, please. We will see that the next element in this coming together of three narratives, places, communities, and stories is a school building in itself. It's a very peculiar building. It was designed and constructed by the community itself by means of the leadership of Michael Reynolds, an architect whose earthship model was brought over all the way here, together with 150 or so volunteers from all parts of the world, who in a little bit longer than a month literally rigged the school together, put it up, from repurposed and reclaimed materials like timbers, tires, bottles, cans, and so on. And what's very interesting about this process of the community coming together is that the kids who ended up being the students were actively, physically involved in building the school itself. And the school is an entirely off-the-grid building. It collects rainwater, and the water nurtures the vegetable gardens that in turn regulate the temperature inside the building. So it's very much like a living organism in itself. And we can confidently say that inhabiting this building creates an atmosphere where the borders between the built and the natural infrastructure get blurred. So it's hard to tell where the landscape ends and the school begins, and it's all like a flowing unity. So if we can move on to the next slide. A little bit, an overview about the case study itself. You can see the school from above with the solar panels and the water collecting tank underneath and behind. The school provides for 120 primary school students and lots of activities for local families. Local NGOs played a great part in building the school and continue to play an important part in its everyday running, as they are engaged in activities like teaching families how to farm the land in organic ways and all sorts of other sustainable projects. We carried out this case study by means of on-site visits and in-depth interviews to all the major stakeholders, including the kids themselves, who are the leaders of on-site visits, and they are so proud of their own project that they are amazingly knowledgeable. So the experience of being led through a guided tour by the students themselves was perhaps the most significant of all the methods used. And then by way of follow-up, we have put together with other colleagues, including Dr. Marcia McKenzie here as a co-author, and a new paper that is hopefully going to be published in the future, looking at this case study through the lens of infrastructure. So if we can move on to the next slide, we will see that having said all this, not everything is peaches and cream, and it's interesting to problematize a little what happens when these designs that are not born entirely in a school setting come to life, and over a couple of years, different tensions arise from the experience of inhabiting the school on an everyday basis. You see the picture of a toilet over there that has also become the gardening tools shed. And it's also the only spot where water is available in the school. So this has created issues having to do with hygiene and how to wash, for example, elements related to food. And although the kids do not spend all day there, sometimes they need to have breakfast or a quick snack. So it has become an issue of concern from authorities, and it has led to that rather unsightly building you see in the background, which is meant to be the future kitchen and dining room for the school, because it hasn't been possible to raise the funds and also bring together all the partnerships required in order to add an extension to the building that would provide these services in the same architectural style. So everyday activities somehow shaped by what we call the school grammar, like this set of rules, rituals, and symbols that shape the day-to-day life of a school, gets in the way of this sustainable model where the infrastructure has provided this environment where nature and school are one and only, right? So if we can move on to the next slide to sum up a few key points and that we have learned from this case study. Perhaps a major achievement in providing a fruitful and inspiring climate communication and education environment is the learning climate. This is one of my favorite quotes from all the interviews, where the school principal tells us that in answering the question, where do you see sustainability at its best within the school life? She says that she sees it in the relationships that are built in the school and with the school. I see sustainability in the learning climate prevailing in the classroom, in the building, and outside of it too. So I thought that pretty much sums up the greatest achievements of this community. And if we can move on to the next slide, just a few points to wrap up. This case study clearly shows the importance of place-based education as a response to climate change and the climate crisis. It also shows how community engagement is a very strong enabler of a sense of ownership, how relationships, atmosphere, and bonds are crucial for a positive climate change communication and education, and that great possibilities emerge when we reimagine infrastructures of schooling befitted to the demands of the Anthropocene. In this case, particularly, not only because of the climate crisis, but also because of the community's strong need to take care of the lagoon and make it a more central part of everyday learning at school. And finally, as I've briefly shown in the unsightly building, the other slide, challenges do arise from broader entanglements with legal, material, and affective unsustainable infrastructures. So those challenges need to be further looked into and addressed. And just a final snapshot of the place in the next slide to say goodbye now. We can move on to the next slide. There we are. You see, that's a picture of the final day of construction with all the volunteers, with families and kids happily waving, even pouring from the rooftop. I think this is a nice visual wrap up to show that in this case study, a unique place, a powerful community, and an inspiring story come together. So thank you once again for the chance to share it with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla, and the team that undertook this research in this amazing school. So now we are into the final portion of the webinar where we have a chance to ask some questions and have some discussion around these case studies and the things that you may be doing in your settings. We hope that these presentations provide some ideas and inspiration for climate action in different communities as we engage in greening communities around the world. So just to get started, and you're welcome to put any comments in the Q&A function if you have some questions. And here's one prompt is keeping in mind the aspects of quality CCE that we've discussed so far. What does quality CCE look like in your communities? And but also we welcome any other questions. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and we can hopefully see our presenters up as well. And we've got one question coming from Nilgiris in India, and that is, whom should we prioritize in terms of climate change education, the rich or marginalized communities or populations? So yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to take a stab at that from our panel. It's a good, challenging question. Anyone? Carla? Oh, we see, but oh, I just lost it there. Vishali, you had an answer in the chat. Did you want to say something on the video? And maybe I think her connection wasn't the greatest. So she answered in here that the importance of prioritizing CCE for marginalized populations as they're the communities most affected, yet have the least access to resources and information. Empowering these communities enhances their resilience and ability to adapt to climate challenges. However, of course, engaging the wealthy is also crucial to drive systemic change and ensure sustainable practices at all levels, given, of course, that climate change has largely been driven by wealthier countries that are consuming the most and outputting the most emissions. So let's see what else we have here. We have a question: how can technology and digital platforms be leveraged to improve climate communication and education efforts among among youth and communities? And yes, thanks for that question, Bidhan from Bangladesh. Any speakers that would like to talk about the digital? I can jump in there if not. I'm very interested in that area, and I think I'm not an expert in leveraging them, which I think is there's various people that are engaging in that, but I'm also quite interested in how the digital has quite a significant contribution to climate change as well, and especially with generative AI and the enormous environmental impacts, including emissions that are generated through AI processes and digital as well. So trying to bring together these two areas that we often see going side by side of furthering the digital, but also starting to think about sustainability, but we're not often connecting those to think, well, actually, we need to be more thoughtful and selective in when and how we engage the digital, because it does have climate and other environmental costs. So, and also just to give the floor to our presenters, if you, put up your hand if you want to say something in response to the other presentations or just add into the discussion. There was a comment about how to be able to participate in the ways that these case studies that we're sharing today. And we'll put in the chat the regional hub sign up page, because we do have regional hubs in the different areas and meetings that people can attend, and ways to reach out to others in your region that are doing climate communication and education. So welcome you to be in touch that way. We have a question here from Mohammed from Pakistan. What are the potential contextual challenges for the sustainability of such greening initiatives and how to mitigate them? So maybe Carrie or Carla, could you take that on?
Hi, Mohammed. That's a great question. In our project on land-based education, this is in many ways a very deeply contextual type of education, as was, what Carla described as well, very rooted in the land and very rooted in the place where people are. And as you can imagine, spending time on the land and learning in this way, outside of classrooms and outside of these structured school buildings takes a lot of resources. And so one thing that's been really documented regarding land-based education is the contextual challenge of how much time, space, expertise is involved in land-based education. The reason we have schools is because they're efficient. They're kind of like a factory. We can cram a lot of bodies into classrooms, into boxes, and and I guess sort of maximize space, but are we maximizing the type of learning that's happening in schools all of the time? And so a challenge that we face in thinking about ways to bring land-based education to other contexts and other learning spaces is, how do we resource this? And so this community does this in Dene with grant funding, with community support, but what other ways can we support this type of learning? And I don't know if Carla wants to speak to the challenges of that in her context also.
Thank you, Carrie. Just to add on from a different angle, I was thinking, definitely resourcing is a key element, but in contexts where that is not easy to get access to, perhaps rethinking regulation can also help. One constraint in the context of our case study was the highly prescribed curriculum. So while the local school made huge efforts to develop their capacities so that their curriculum would go in line with everything else, the wonderful building, all the outdoors and the experiential learning. So they would go to such lengths as to, for example, explore very tailor-made literature choices and be very careful about what kind of stories and underpinning narratives in the resources chosen for all the school subjects they would go for. Then when the moment of standardized testing came, kids were required to respond to questions on the details of the plot of completely culturally alien stories like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So, there was this tension between following up on their own vision and their own school and pedagogical project and complying with the nationally and subnationally prescribed curriculum. So when no large funding is available, rethinking these prescriptions to allow for more locally based place-based proposals to take on their own flight might be a way out of this conundrum.
Thank you both. We have a few different questions that are asking about how do we implement CCE in conflict-affected regions where there's immediate challenges of loss of life and home and people having to migrate or flee and all those difficulties, and what does that, but also climate change being a backdrop and a future prospect. And I don't know if anyone has any, we didn't have a case study on that today, but I think those are great, important questions just to acknowledge, especially with the conflicts that we have happening at the moment in Gaza. So we've just at the end of time here. We've got questions also about the importance of engaging parents and engaging communities. And I think we've had some great examples of that, of intergenerational learning from different sites, which is fantastic to see as well. And also we've had a point about the importance of whole school approaches, which again, we've seen the example of at the Mar Chiquita School of a perfect example of whole school learning. So I think we will leave it there for the questions, but feel free to put any final comments in the chat. We'd like to thank you all for attending and for your excellent contributions in the chat and your enthusiasm for the presentations. That's really great to see. They are such exciting examples, I think, and just, feeling really excited hearing them presented again today. And again, just to say, if you joined us late, that the reports for the case studies are available on the MECCE website, MECCE.ca, as well as obviously the resources through these the organizations and people that are speaking today themselves. So please follow up for any more information on these examples, as well as the many other case studies that have been completed in other sites. So thank you to the attendees, thank you to the speakers, thank you to UNESCO and to the Greening Education Partnership for hosting the webinar today. And wishing everyone the best in your work with climate communication and education. Thank you.